Market of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1953 Japanese horror/drama movie Ugetsu. Hey, I'm not here to fill your head with crazy ideas. I'm just here to review every movie that has a 100% fresh rating of Rotten Tomatoes. I will give them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them all, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920 silent movie era, and now I am at 1953 with Ugetsu. This movie was directed by Kenji Mizoguchi. It has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and a 94% fresh rating from the audience, and it was nominated for Best Costume Design for a black and white movie at the Oscars. So this movie basically deals with greed, the idea of what's right and what's wrong, what really matters in someone's life and what doesn't, and the power that your family has, and the fact that you should always put your family first. So when this movie opens up, we are introduced to Genjuro, who is a potter, and his brother Tobee, who is a farmer. Now, Genjuro, he wants to become rich with his pottery. He wants to sell as much pottery as he possibly can because he thinks that money is the most important thing in the world. Money makes the world go round, and without it, you really have nothing. His brother Tobee is someone who wants to be a famous samurai. He wants to have all the accolades. He wants to be the toughest. He wants to be the most feared samurai in the world. Now, these are two people who have really pie-in-the-sky ideas, but they live simple lives. The potter, Genjuro, he lives a simple life with his son and with his wife, and then Tobee also lives a sort of simple life with his wife as well, and he helps his brother make the pottery and sell it so that one day maybe he can afford to buy this suit of armor and the spear and everything that it'll take for him to become a famous samurai. So while they're selling their pottery and while they're living this life with their family and having these pie-in-the-sky dreams, there is a war that's coming to their town, and it's coming a lot sooner than they think they are. So one day they are kind of awoken and they realize their village is being attacked by this war party. Now, the women and everyone else in the village, they want to get out of there. They want to get to safety. They want to be able to hide their women and their children from this war party because they know exactly what's going to happen. The men are going to be taken and be forced to be soldiers for this army, and the women are going to be raped or killed or both. So the panic is ensuing, and everyone tries to get out of the village. That is, everyone except for Genjuro and Tobee. They are concerned that if they leave the village, the fire of their kiln is going to go out. Now, the kiln is what kind of what you put the pottery in for it to harden, and this is the soul of their income. This is where their income comes from. If the fire dies, then basically all their income dies. Now, Genjuro's wife says, just leave it. We'll get it later. Like, come on, let's go. So he makes some preparation. He kind of puts some more wood on the fire before they leave, and then they leave and they hide. They get word that the warring party is starting to leave the city but hasn't left the city yet, and Genjuro says, okay, I gotta go make sure that the fire is still going. My pottery is still good. Of course, his wife says you shouldn't do that. You should wait until everyone has left. He goes into town anyway, and he checks it. He's nearly caught by the soldiers, but he's not, and he realizes that the fire is out, but all the pottery is fine. It's hardened. It's what it's supposed to be like. It's where it's supposed to be. So this is great news for him because now he can go into the town and he can sell his pottery. So they decide that they're going to sell the pottery, and they decide that they're going to sail on this lake to go to the pottery. This lake scene is my favorite part of the whole movie. There's a lot of fog in this scene. It's really a horrific scene. It's very tense. You don't know what's going to happen. The cinematography here is absolutely fantastic. So as they're floating along this lake, they see a boat coming up coming from the opposite direction, and there's a guy on it. They think that the guy is some sort of spirit or some sort of ghost, and he says, "No, I'm not a ghost, but I'm just letting you know that this boat was attacked by pirates." Now this guy is dying. He doesn't have a lot of time left, but he says, "Don't go that way. You're going to get killed by pirates. It's not the best thing to do." So Tobee and Genjuro decide that they're going to turn around, drop the women off, and then they're going to go in town themselves to sell this pottery. So him and Tobee decide to go into the town. They sell the pottery. While they're there, Tobee finds a guy who is just dressed to the nines in samurai gear, and he makes his decision that he's going to leave his wife and he's going to pursue this life as a samurai, but he's going to return later on, and she's going to see how much of a man he's become and how big he is and how strong he is and how feared he is, and he's just going to be the man that she's always wanted. Now, of course, she doesn't want this. She just wants him as he is. Like, she wants him alive. She wants to be with him, but he decides he's going to do this, and he goes off and he does it. He begs a samurai. He says, "Please take me as your vassal. Please let me learn how to be a samurai." Now this samurai completely, shrugs him off and says, "You have to get your own sword. You have to get your own spear. You have to prove that you can be my vassal before you can actually be the vassal." So Tobee then kind of dedicates his life to this. Now on the other side of the coin, we have the potter. He has this part of his story where this woman comes up to him. She, I believe, is the servant of another woman, and she says, "Hey, will you come and see this person that I work for? She wants to talk to you." So he goes to her, and she talks about how she loves his pottery, how his pottery is like the greatest thing in the world. And she brings out some of his pottery, and she says, "Look, I have all this pottery that you've done." And he, he acts like he's very humbled by it, that a woman of her stature would have his pottery. And we then kind of figure out, now she is some sort of apparition, because she is able to, sing this song. She has the samurai headgear of her father, and she's able to sing this song to him, and he forgets that he's married. He forgets he's in a relationship. She seduces him into becoming her husband of sorts. So he ends up becoming her husband, and he forgets that he has a wife and a kid. His wife and his kid at this time, they are struggling. They are also being constantly raided by soldiers. She ends up getting on this path. She has some food that she's carrying along. She has her son on her back as she's walking down this path, and then she's approached by some soldiers. Now, the soldiers at first are trying to steal her food and try to steal her goods, because they just kind of eat and take whatever they can in their villages. And then there's a scene, I wasn't expecting this at all. There's a scene where one of the soldiers turns around and runs her through with his weapon, and she dies. This scene just tore my heart into shreds. Like, I had to rewatch it again just to make sure what I was watching, what I thought I was seeing, was correct, and it was. He kills her, and then her son is kind of on his own. We don't know what happens to him until later on in the movie. So eventually, Genjuro, he meets a guy. He's also kind of like I would say like a doctor, like a witch doctor of some kind. I don't know how you would describe it, a medicine man of sorts. And he says, "Oh, like, you look different. You look like, I don't know exactly what's wrong with you, but you look different." He says, "Where have you been staying?" And He says where he's been staying and how he wound up in that predicament. And the guy says, you need to get out of there. You need to get out of there now because you were seduced. You have a family at home. You have a wife at home. You need to get back to them. You need to stop what you're doing and you need to get back to them. So he ends up putting some sort of tattoo markings on his body, which I guess is supposed to scare away or repel the apparition. Genjuro goes back to this to this house, and he says, look, I have a wife and a kid at home. I just remembered. I have to get back to them. Now they try to push back and say you can't do that, but they rip off his shirt and they see these markings on him, and they immediately are repelled by it. So he ends up picking up a sword and he kind of tries to fight him off a little bit, and he gets out of there, and he's able to go back to his house where his wife and his kids were. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, so while Tobee is away doing his samurai, trying to become a samurai, his wife is at home. His wife's name is Ohama. She's at home, and the village once again gets attacked. And I mean, they don't blatantly say this, and they don't like blatantly show this because it's a 1953 black and white movie, but she is raped by a group of soldiers, and this changes her life drastically. They throw some change at her and say, here, like, take this money. They just basically treat her like she's nothing, and then they walk away, and we don't see her for a little bit after that. From Tobee, he saw a samurai, kind of a high position samurai that was severely wounded, and he asked another guy to kind of decapitate him. So he's decapitated, and Tobee steals the decapitated head and takes it to the samurai that he asked to be the vassal of. He says, look, I got this high-ranking general's head. Now can I become a samurai? Now, at first, the guy kind of brushes him off and says, "Oh, where did you steal this from?" And then he says, "Well, I can't prove that you stole it, and you bought it, or you brought it, so I'm going to go ahead and give you what you want." And Tobee says, "I want vassals. I want a great horse. I want a spear. I want to be a samurai." So he makes him a samurai. He gives him everything that he wants. Tobee then is riding into a town with his vassals behind him, and he's, proud of himself, and he's a big man on campus. And they end up staying at this harem, I guess, with these girls who are just throwing themselves at these samurais. And he ends up, one of his vassals asks him, we've heard stories of your great deeds. How did you become such a great samurai? How did you kill that high-ranking officer? And of course, Tobee has to lie here because he didn't actually kill anyone, and he actually hasn't done anything great. So he starts, like one of those videos online where someone says, well, to be a great manager, you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take a shower, eat a great breakfast, run 2 miles, that kind of BS that everyone just regurgitates when they try to say this is how you become successful in life. And I don't know who buys into that, but some people do. So he starts doing that kind of thing, only talking about as if he's a samurai. And everyone's eating it up. And then this lady, she's a prostitute. She runs out and she's yelling at this vassal that he cheated her out of money. And Tobee sees her, and it is Ohama. It's his wife. And he says, "Wife, what happened? How did you become in this situation?" And she gets mad at him, and she says, "You left me. You left me with nothing. I was tortured. I was raped by samurais. This is what I have to do now in order to survive, because you just left me completely high and dry." And Tobee, she said, "This is what you want. You wanted to become a samurai. You've gotten everything you wanted, so I'm assuming that you're happy." And Tobee says, "No, how can I be happy? You're the only thing I want. Maybe this is what I thought I wanted, but now that I see you like this, I know that it's not what I want, and I just want you. So he ends up leaving the samurai life, and he ends up going back and continuing his life with Ohama. And then once Genjuro comes home, he has this vision that's not true. It's almost like a mirage where he sees his wife alive, and his wife is talking to him and talking about like, how was your day and where have you been, all this stuff. And then his son is there, and he thinks that this is like his life is just going to go back to normal.
Miyagi, 遅くなった。すまなんだ。
お帰りなさいませ。
さあ。
And so the next day when he wakes up, he gets a knock on the door. It's one of his friends, and his friend comes in and says, "Oh my God, like, where have you been? I've been taking care of your son here." Now his son is alive, and his son is on the floor. And Genjuro says, "Oh, I was just talking to my wife last night. We were just talking about where I've been." And the guy says, "You must be seeing things because your wife died."
宮城は落ち武者に殺されたよ。え？殺された？No.
Like, she's not alive anymore. After you left, she was killed by soldiers. So he ends up creating a grave for her, and he ends up raising his son. And that's the movie, basically. Now, this movie is absolutely heart-wrenching. And somehow Japanese films have this ability to just completely, like, tear your heart out and make you have all these feelings of remorse and regret. And it really makes you reflect on your life and what's important in your life, and what you've done, whether it be good or bad, to kind of get you in the direction that your life is supposed to be. Now, this isn't as sad as Grave of the Fireflies, which I will review because it has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I have seen it, and I said I probably would never watch it again, but here we are. Not because it's not a great movie, but because it's so sad, just like most Japanese movies. But this movie, I mean, the cinematography in this movie is fantastic, especially in the scene on the lake. That scene, I mean, I was completely into that scene, totally, 100%. It had my full attention. It was shot masterfully. The acting in this movie is fantastic. The script is great. The costumes are amazing. And it really makes you think about what's important in your life and what was important and what they thought was important in their life. They thought making money and they thought their wives wanted them to make money, to be rich, to be powerful, to be big men in the town. This sort of is like I Was Born But, which was another Japanese silent film that I reviewed a little ways back, where the kids thought that their father was the big man in town, that that's what you're supposed to be, that means you're a success. But the wives thought that their husbands were mostly a success anyway, just because they were good people and because they were hard workers and because they loved them. Like, that's all they needed. But these guys were so full of greed and so full of, being the best and being the top person and being the richest person, that they weren't able to see what they had, and they weren't able to see that they were actually enough. And I think that we as a people have that issue. I know I have a big problem with that, where I never think I'm enough. Like, I never think I'm enough for my wife. I never think I'm enough for my animals. I never think I'm enough for my bosses at work, but I'm the only one who thinks that. Like, everyone else thinks that I'm fine. My wife always says, "No, you're exactly what I want." Like, I wish you would stop saying that. When I bring it up at work, when I have work reviews, they say you need to have more confidence because you are enough. And I think that we all go through this emotion. And this is from a movie from 1953, but it's still so relevant today that we all go through this feeling at some point that we aren't living up to what everyone else wants us to live up to. And we put other people, we put movie stars, we put actors, we put models, we put all these people on this pedestal, and we say that this is what I need to be like, this is what I have to achieve, but it's not realistic, and it's not what's going to happen. Like, you need to be able to be enough with who you are. You need to be able to accept yourself for who you are. You need to be able to, like the person that you are. I told my wife one time, I told her, I love you more than I love myself, and even before I loved you, I liked you more than I ever liked myself. And that's a problem that I have because I have very little self-esteem, and that's always been an issue, and it's always been a little source of contention too, because I have this imposter syndrome, and I think that a lot of people suffer from this, and this harkens to that, is that they want to be more than than they should. I don't want to say they want to be more than they should be, but they want to be more than what's realistic. They want to be, and it's just a matter of greed, because they have a great life with what they have, but they're just so greedy, and their ambitions are so swayed into, they don't have their priorities straight. This guy has a son and he has a wife, and yet he decides to go off these wild escapades to sell these potteries while villages are under attack, and he tries to go back to his village so that he can keep the fire going. It's not worth it, and it's not necessary. And the guy who Tobee, who was the who wanted to be a samurai, once you get married, and once you meet that person in your life, that should be your goal. Your goal should be, how can I make my life with this person the best? Your goal shouldn't be, how can I leave her and go become a samurai, because that's what I've always wanted to do since I was young. There's a point where you settle down and you try to make a life for the both of you and not just for yourself. And I think this movie does a really good job of that. This movie really tugs at your heartstrings. When Genjuro's wife died and her son was just sitting there. Now my wife is expecting our first child now, and I was like, I can't imagine what would happen if that happened. That's horrible. And he is away with this girl because he was seduced, and he has no idea any of this is going on. And it's heart-wrenching. The whole movie is just gutting, really. And I recommend anyone who likes sad movies, or anyone who wants a movie with a nice nice moral story at the end, to watch it. I give Ugetsu a 9 out of 10. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.